Welcome to I Wrote That, a podcast for entrepreneurs who are navigating the crazy world of authorship. Whether you're just starting out or already established, we want to help you navigate the publishing world with confidence. My name is Larissa Sohan, and this channel is brought to you by Next Page Publishing. With the help of our industry partners, we bring you the insights on the most challenging yet most rewarding parts of being an authorpreneur, along with the actionable tips to help you move your brand and your business forward. Don't forget to download your free copy of our book, Author Your Way to Your Next 100K, by visiting nextpagepublishing.net/author-your-way. Let's meet our next guest. Welcome back to another season of I Wrote That. My name is Larissa Sohan, and I'm your host and CEO of Next Page Publishing, where we help entrepreneurs like you write books. And today I'm very excited to have my guest, Ray, because we've been in contact for a long time, and we've been kind of following each other and sending leads each other's way and really building out what we want to see inside the publishing organization. So this is very, very exciting. Ray is a senior ghostwriter and head of operations at Write It Great, a boutique ghostwriting firm. He has written many books for CEOs, CTOs, COOs, and CIOs. All the C's are in there, and many more niche startup founders and entrepreneurs. Content to work behind the scenes, he has developed a keen understanding of systems thinking and has several observations on how the publishing industry has strayed from its purpose. Oh, Ray, welcome.
Thank you.
It's really exciting because I think you and I, when we connected, that's what brought us together, was that understanding of what we want publishing to be versus what it actually is.
Yes, very much so.
And even, I mean, you booked this podcast recording months ago, and you gave me a list of questions. And when I asked you, do you want me to stick to those questions? You were like, no, it's so much has changed. So why don't you just, from your view as a ghostwriter in this world, what's going on in the industry right now?
Yeah, man, where to begin? I'm going to start with audiobooks, actually. I don't think there's an ideal starting place, but audiobooks to me are interesting because they cross every genre, every style of publishing. And if you're an author or an aspiring author, maybe it wasn't something you thought about 10 years ago, but now it kind of has to be.
Mm-hmm.
And the first tricky thing is that unless you're working with a top publishing company, which a few people are,
Like one of the big five, you're talking
one of the
about
big
Random
five,
House, Penguin. Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
exactly. You're not going to have support on the audiobook side. And producing an audiobook is not easy. It's not. There are a lot of format requirements, timing requirements, quality requirements, enunciation, speed. You have to change the manuscript for listeners instead of readers. It's a whole nother project on top of you just spent who knows how many months, years writing a book. You just want to get it out there. But the audiobook industry is really taking control of the cutting edge right now, really thanks to Spotify, of all companies. There have been kind of background murmuring complaints with Audible, but no one's bothered to do anything because there's not another great option. And from a audiobook consumer standpoint, Audible's pretty great. I listen to Audible every week. I love the system. It's easy. But at the same time, do I recommend my authors go use Audible? No,
Right. And so
not at all.
this is such an interesting topic. I think we should, title the whole episode, because I think I could talk about audiobooks forever.
Yeah.
So I have an audiobook. I went through ACX, which is Amazon's
Mhm.
audiobook platform, to get my first sci-fi narrated, and it was actually a pretty good system. I found my narrator fairly easily. She was really good. Communication was lacking, but what I paid, I'm always the belief of I got what I paid for, and I didn't have a huge budget
Yeah.
for it. But on your end, what are some of the difficulties that you're talking about on the author side? Because I didn't see any of them, so I'm curious.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. Do you know how many people have listened to your audiobook?
No, I've never looked.
Even if you were to look, do you think you'd be able to find out?
I would hope so, but I can't.
I don't think Audible releases that information.
Oh my goodness. I've honestly never signed in, and that's just I just wanted to have a cool audiobook.
Yeah.
Okay, that's very interesting. So one is the back end reporting system for authors of like what can you see of who's downloading your books. Okay, that's a good one. That's very viable.
hmm Yeah. So, you're going to be compensated in some fashion, but is that from people who are using credits to acquire your audiobook? Or are they buying it up front? How are you pricing your audiobook? You don't have a ton of control over those things. So that is all changing rapidly. So by the time this episode comes out, who knows if what I'm saying is even relevant. Um, but Spotify they rolled out a program a year ago where if you owned your premium subscription plan for your family or your friend group or whatever, you and you alone got 15 hours of free audiobook listening for free. And Spotify is tracking how many hours each listener spends on each audiobook. And they're attributing the monetary value of those hours to the owners of the royalties. So if you're a publisher or a self-published author, you're getting exactly the value of what consumers are spending on what you created. So it's a very fair and transparent system. So I'm expecting Audible to quickly make some changes. I have no idea what they're going to look like, but it makes me excited as someone who's always trying to advocate for my authors on what the best path is, to see that the two main platforms, the two main competitors in the audiobook industry are now there's a competitive market. It's not a monopoly anymore. So suddenly there's incentive to do its best for the authors and not just what's easiest for the listeners. So
Mhm.
that's exciting for authors. And like you mentioned, ACX is a really great platform to streamline the production of your audiobook. But then to what end? How much are you going to benefit from actually putting your audiobook out there? And important question is it even worth it to market your audiobook? Because if it is, they're much easier to market than print and ebook copies
Right.
because you just go on podcasts. Podcast listeners are the exact same market as audiobook listeners. Long form audio content. It
Hmm.
doesn't get easier than that. Whereas reaching physical copy readers is hard because they're not on their phones, they're not on their laptops. They're sitting in a library or at a coffee shop or curled up on their couch next to a window with a candle and a coffee reading a physical book. How do you get their attention? Unless your book is front and center in a bookstore for them to see, they're not going to pick up your book. They're not going to know it exists. It's so hard to market to them. And that's where kind of the original conception of this podcast conversation came about is how do you do that? It used to be publishing companies would put the book in front of people in bookstores, but now they don't really do that.
And bookstores are really sadly very much dying out.
They
I
are.
mean, my local chapters, I'm Canadian, so we've got chapters versus Barnes and Noble, but you go there and it's mostly now, it's, I would say 30% books and 70%, oh, well, there's a 10% Starbucks, love that Starbucks. There's the rest of it is home goods, like pillows and throw blankets and thing. I don't know, you walk in there, I'm like, is this a bookstore? And it's like in the back corner of the books. They're dying very, very much.
Yeah, it is sad because, people who are book lovers like you and me, like that's our happy place.
It is.
But I've talked to a couple bookstore owners and they're they are struggling. It is so hard to put the content you want on the shelves when it's only going to be a handful of books that sell.
Hmm.
And every book that sits on their shelf that doesn't sell is basically like a roommate that doesn't pay rent.
Hmm.
And they've got thousands of those roommates. They can't afford that.
Yeah.
Um, they just can't. It's an unfortunate situation. So they need to get essentially only the books that are being marketed and advertised the most by the major publishing
Hmm.
companies. Those are the ones they're going to buy the most copies of and fill the most space on their shelves. Because those, to continue the analogy, those books are paying rent.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit more about audiobooks and how authors can, I think it makes a big difference going into the writing process, knowing that you're going to want to market, like you're going to want to produce an audiobook. I just talked
Mhm.
about this in one of our boot camps yesterday, that some of the books, I'm also a very big audiobook listener. I do most of my consumption through audiobook after spending all week reading my clients' work, sometimes my eyes are tired and I just can't read anymore. So I do audiobooks.
Yeah.
But some books are just not meant to be audiobooks. There's a couple, and I love Gabby Bernstein, so this is not a slight against her, and I love her work. But she has one audiobook, I believe it's Super Attractor, that is awful. It is a terrible audiobook because it's day-to-day like reflection and actions questions that you really need to have written down and to see and to like to be able to pause on it and journal on it and things like that. It's just not meant to be an audiobook. And yet I spent, well, let's say it wasn't a credit, it's probably a $32 book that I had to buy the paper book back anyways. And I'm not the only one to say this. But on the flip side, there are some books that the one I'm going to talk about, 10x is easier than 2x. Are you familiar with that one? It's by
So,
Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy.
yes,
Yes.
yes, I know that one.
Um, their style of writing, and Who Not How, they both did this. Their audiobooks, they bring in the co-author, and it's like a podcast in between every chapter. And so you're
Mm,
actually, as an audiobook listener, you're getting more than what you would get as a reader. And I just think like as a paperback reader or ebook. And that to me shows the ingenuity of what audiobooks is bringing to the table, the ability to be flexible and really, I mean, even Mel Robbins reads her own book, 5 Second Rule. She reads that one. And you
yeah,
can, and she, I'm willing to bet if I pick that one up as a paperback, it is not written the way she talks. It is so funny. She is so casual. It's like you're having a conversation with her. She swears and she does ums and ahs. And it's like I'm having a conversation. But that's the potential of audiobooks.
absolutely. So for Mel Robbins, I'm not super familiar with her book, but our company's partnered quite a bit with Post Hill Press, who published her book. And we kind of know how they operate, and they're very much putting in the time to make sure it, at least on the print side, it's a quality work. I'm not familiar with the audiobook production route, so it makes me wonder if perhaps Mel Robbins had a lot more autonomy over how the audiobook was produced.
Yeah, you should give it a listen just for style. Because it's again, it's that it's not well pronunciated. Like it's casual. Like, do you know what I mean? Like it doesn't sound like she's a professional narrator who's this is her job. No, she's just Mel Robbins. And that's who you're
I
talking to.
think that's what I love about Benjamin Hardy's work. I started listening to him back in 2018, and his audiobook that he reads of Willpower Doesn't Work, like that changed my life. And I think it was the audiobook, hearing it from him, hearing his passion for this. This was his first book, rather than reading it, which I imagine would have been kind of based a lot on his online. He was the #1 poster on Medium for a long time, and the Medium articles are very much kind of stream of consciousness journal, daily journal entries turned into Medium post, and then I think a lot of that got converted into the book. But hearing him talk it through, I think there's something else when you do the audiobook production where you're doing another pass of the manuscript to essentially rewrite it for the listener. Instead of saying you'll see here and listen to this or hear this, it's those small tweaks that you're changing. But as you do that secondary pass through the manuscript or final extra pass, you're finding other little things that you want to change. So it's almost like the audiobook version is the most polished version of the book.
Mhm.
And it comes through. And I think it definitely came through in Benjamin Hardy's books and his audiobooks. He also has an interesting energy too.
Yeah. And I think energy is what I love about them the most especially when it's narrated by the author. I know like I'm working on many nonfictions right now, but the effort that an author has to go through to convey energy on a page, and you would know this as a ghostwriter, is totally, it's like taking your tone of voice and magnifying it by 10 to get it across to the reader what energy you're trying to bring to the conversation, to the paragraph, to the topic. But when you're audiobooking it, you can almost, I mean, we all know pregnant pauses go a long ways, right?
Mhm.
That drop in sentence, the tone, the voice, the pitch, the speed, it's all there. I love audiobooks because I actually feel like, and when they're read by the author especially, I feel like I'm connecting with them on such a different level.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Are you hoping 2025 will be the year you write your brand-centered book? Or maybe you have a business book that isn't doing what you want. No matter where you are on your authorpreneur journey, we have the secret to your success, and we're going to give it to you for free. In our new book, Author Your Way to Your Next 100K, we share with you the formula and tools to guarantee your business book is a success. Within the pages of Author Your Way to Your Next 100K, you will learn from the expertise of a nonfiction publisher and the real-life examples of authors who have seen incredible success using our proven strategies. We're also going to give you access to our workbook, where you can tangibly assess where in your business a book can make the biggest impact for you. This book and the companion workbook are specifically built to help entrepreneurs like you write and sell a book that converts readers into clients with the power of artful invitation and deliberate storytelling. At Next Page Publishing, we believe in helping you achieve massive returns on your investments. Your time, energy, skill, and experiences are valuable, and you deserve to create a tool that matches your worth. This book is our gift to you. Visit nextpagepublishing.net/authoryourway to access your free copy today. Now let's get back to our guest expert.
Yeah, it's a little more dimensional than words on a page. I think the main thing is the tone and the cadence. I'm not a speech pathologist or therapist by any means, but I'm with books every day and trying to figure out how the reader is going to read something. What's the cadence going to be in their mind, and how do you kind of preemptively cue them to how they're supposed to be reading something? It's both science as much as art. And that's a lot of what we do as ghostwriters, is try to sit in the seat of the reader and then do the writing. But then we're kind of translating our author's tone from all the interviews and their studies and their journal entries to, okay, the way I like to frame it is they have a beautiful spiderweb tapestry of knowledge in their mind. I work in the nonfiction field, so I'm working with authors who have been working on a problem for decades. And they've made all these connections, and every connection is like the knot between one spiderweb and another spiderweb on that bigger spiderweb tapestry. But a book is just one string of web. It's not the tapestry. You don't have the connections. You can only read one word at a time. So how do we as ghostwriters untangle the spider web in our author's minds so that the readers don't get caught up in it as they're trying to read, and then deliberate to the readers in a way where they can begin to retie the knots in a way that creates a web in the reader's mind that closely resembles the web in the author's mind. It's a process. But when you're reading it out loud and you can add the tone and the cadence, it simplifies that transmission process so much.
Yeah, I think of like ghostwriting because I've done a few ghostwriting projects and writing my own books. It's like it's manufacturing emotions and connection. That's what it feels like, is you're trying to build up a feeling or a connection in the reader's mind. And I love your spiderweb analogy because yeah, it's distilling what's in the author's mind into a book, but also leaving like open ends of the spider web where the reader can join their own spider webs of what's living in their mind, and they can integrate it into their lives and their feelings and their experiences to really drive it home. It's an incredible talent to do that for someone else, like as a ghostwriter, right? To come in, and because you're not just holding your own spider web, you're holding multiple spider webs. It's a talent for sure.
Yeah.
I want to ask more about the ghostwriting thing. I know we talked about the audiobooks are changing the publishing world, but what are you seeing in ghostwriting for happenings?
Yeah, that is a good question. Because I think one thing that I'm observing among the authors that my team ends up working with is that what they're looking for isn't necessarily the easiest path to produce the book. They're looking for who's actually going to be my teammate and advocate through this whole process. It's not the publisher anymore. It used to be the publisher, but it's not the publisher anymore. So who's sitting in that role? And I firmly believe, and this is how my team operates, that it's the ghostwriters. We're the ones coming in from concept through publication and beyond, sitting and working on behalf of the author. Now, it's not a perfect replacement because we're compensated up front, whereas in the past, the publishers assumed a lot of risk when they partnered with an author. We're not assuming risk. So there's that. But like you said earlier, you do get what you pay for. And when you're working with a ghostwriter who's been around the block, who has network connections, who understands all the different ways books can be written, published, marketed, positioned on a bookshelf. There's so many things that, as a first-time author entering this massive industry, you wouldn't even think about. You don't have to categorize your book in the genre that you're writing in. That's a big one. We work with a lot of authors who want to write memoirs. Well, how are you going to compete in the memoir space next to
Oprah.
Michelle
Yeah,
Obama, Oprah?
exactly,
Like,
right. Yeah.
you know, but maybe you can market it as a leadership book, and then people pick that up saying, "Oh, look at this. This person's got some leadership success." And then next thing they know, they're reading a really compelling story that's also about leadership. And so there's ways to do that. And that translates to fiction as well.
Mhm.
Are you going to drop it in the sci-fi fantasy space? How are you going to compete next to Sanderson?
Yeah, I know, right? That's the categories I'm in for two of my books, and it's like I'm number 380,000, right? Um, but it's very interesting. I think a lot of the categorization, like again, I know we could hit any one of these topics for an entire episode. The categorization really is just a marketing tool. That's all it is. And I met with a prospective
Yeah.
client yesterday. She's like, I don't want a self-help book. This isn't a self-help book. And I'm like, I think you, and I put my coach hat on, right? And she was a coach too, so she laughed plus rolled her eyes. But I'm like, I think you have limiting beliefs around what self-help means because it really is just a marketing tool. It has nothing to do with what, honestly, what your opinion of what you want the book to be is. It's what's the reader thinking. That's
Right.
what matters. What are they here to pick it up? Because you're right. Memoirs and autobiographies, unless and that's probably the one category where unless you have a really big name, someone knows the basis of your story, they are hard to sell beyond
Yeah.
your mom and your brother.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's where there are some misconceptions around people in the industry thinking things are great and authors and readers going, what's going on here?
Hmm.
Because the industry's growing. Big publishing companies are doing pretty well. Spotify is turning a profit thanks to an additional many millions of dollars in revenue from audiobooks. The publishing side's doing great. Their publishers are signing more six-figure deals than they ever have. But that's a bit misleading for authors. That doesn't mean there's more money on the table for them.
Hmm.
Uh, that means for the biggest names, like the princes, like the presidents, the market's there, or at least the path to market is there. And it's exciting that people are reading again. You know, I think COVID influenced that quite a bit, but
Oh
now,
yeah.
um,
Forced inside time will do that. One
yeah.
more thing I want to talk about before we go is the misconception that ghostwriting is cheating. And I'm just going to lay that out there because I
Ooh,
hear that all the time because this is a good one because I'm a ghostwriter too and I'm a writing coach. So I see both sides of it.
yeah.
And the example I'm going to bring into this is the Obamas, actually, because correct me if
Hmm.
I'm wrong, Barack Obama had his book ghostwritten. Is that correct?
I don't know 100% for sure, but I've been told secondhand that the Obamas wrote their own books.
I think it was like a vice. Okay, so it's one or the other. So correct me. Sorry if I'm wrong, listeners. Michelle wrote her book and Barack did not. And so they have this like internal war. His first book. I think he is writing his second book himself, but Michelle would always like egg him like I wrote my book and she'd like kind of like rib him a little bit. But there is there's a line between what you're trying to get out of your book and versus what you're willing to get in. And I'm going to say this right, and then I want you to tell me your opinion on it, freehold of what I'm about to say. In
Okay.
my opinion, coaching is for those who want to be taught how to do it. They want to be taught how to find their voice, how to write in their message. They want to carry that skill into books 2, 3, and 4. They want to use it in their copywriting for their businesses. They want to use it so that they can be better pitches to media and things like that. It is about the skill of learning to write, plus the bragging rights, just a wee bit of the bragging rights. And then on the ghostwriting side, those to me are the people that know they have good content, but are valuing their time over learning the skill of how. Do you know what I mean? Like it's that who versus how question in people's minds. So that's how I view like, do I need to ghostwrite or should I get a coach? Is, well, do you want to learn the skill or do you just want the book out so that you can start leveraging the tool?
Yeah. I'll start by sharing the analogy I often share with people in my first call with them when they're just first considering, hey, is this a path I want to go down? And they're wondering. They usually don't ask because they're afraid of offending me, but they're wondering, is ghostwriting cheating? Who else uses ghostwriters? And the answer to that is a lot of people.
A lot of people.
Uh,
Yeah.
and obviously I'm biased. I don't think it's cheating, but let me go more into the why. So the analogy I use is if you were to commission a self-portrait of yourself, would you do it yourself? Would you
Mhm.
paint your own face and put it in a golden canvas and give it to a gallery for people to see and possibly buy? Probably not. Um,
Mhm.
no.
Right. Unless you're willing to invest in the time and it takes to get that skill up, which I can tell you my skill will never be above like a second grader's drawing.
Yeah, and it shows. I think people think because I write emails and I've written essays, in the past that I can write a book. It is a different art. It is a different skill. There's so much more to understanding how much energy it takes for readers to spend hours reading.
Mhm.
It takes energy. If it's an email, you'll burn through it. If it's a short blog post, you'll burn through it. If it's a 2-page essay, you'll burn through it. If it's a 10-page essay, you'll burn through it. But if it's a 10 to 12 chapter book and it's a lot of energy just to read the first 10 pages, they're not going to keep reading
Mhm.
because it's too much energy. It burns calories to read. And one of the jobs of a ghostwriter is not only are we going to reduce the amount of calories it takes the reader to read, through syntax, word choice, cadence, all these things. But we're going to add perspective to your stories that you wouldn't think about, where you understand what hooks a reader, what engages a reader, what doesn't just make it easier to read, makes it fun to read. We've written books about surface level boring topics and they've done well, with the exception of HOAs. There was kind of no way to make HOAs exciting. Uh, with that
Have you
exception.
written a book on HOAs? Like, are you talking homeowner association fees? Is that
Yeah,
what? Oh,
yeah.
that's a dull
That
topic.
was tough. That was a slog to write.
Yeah, I bet. I think though, as a ghostwriter, you're bringing the reader angle to it. And this is what we do with our coaching clients in the very
Mm,
beginning. The first week is we're talking about the reader. It's always about the reader. But
yeah.
you as the ghostwriter, you're looking at it through both lenses automatically. That's
Mhm.
what you're doing. And that is a huge asset to anybody's like team, toolkit, whatever you want to call your ghostwriter in your back pocket. They're your partner, they're your viability check, they are your skill. Gosh, I could go on and on. I love ghostwriting, and I think it gets a bad rep because people do think it's cheating, but at the end of the day, it is 100% the author. It's
Yeah,
just who did the typing. That's really it.
yeah.
And I mean, it's more than that, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, I tell people if Prince Harry can do it, you can do it. It's fine.
Yeah.
Actually, I think Prince Harry going public, not necessarily by choice, but by circumstance, going public about working with a ghostwriter was probably the best thing for the industry. Completely destigmatized the whole ghostwriting industry and realized, oh, well, on one level, obviously he didn't write his own book, but on another level, like, well, yeah, okay. There's people who get paid a lot of money, respectable amount of money to write books and write them well. And I think what goes back to the advocacy part and support for authors is when you write your own book and then you go to a publishing house, if assuming you're publishing traditionally, their editors are going to put readers first, them second, you third.
Hmm.
Um, when you work with a ghostwriter, it's readers first, you second, everyone else third. Readers are always first. You
Always,
kind of have to
always.
accept that.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
I think yeah, I want to wrap this up, but I think the thing that we try to strive for because we do help entrepreneurs is it is balancing the scales between the reader and the author of like how we use our books, but like the content inside the book is pretty much always for the reader. And
yes,
that's the lens you have to take it. And then as an entrepreneur, you can look at your book as a like almost like a package. Like it's don't look at it the content, don't look at the words, but what do you want to do with it, right? Like
yeah.
it's a tool now. Okay, Ray, I have to wrap this conversation up. I feel like
Okay.
we could keep going forever. Um, Favorite question that's followed me through into season 5. What advice do you have for aspiring authors?
Read.
Good one.
It's easy and hard as that.
Yeah. This is, see, you gave me more food for topic. I have a very when I'm writing, I can't read within my genre. I can't read in the topic that I'm writing in because I find it influences my voice too much. And so I
Yeah.
step out, but I still read like outside the topic. Is that the kind of advice you give, or I think that probably depends on the person.
Yeah. I don't really qualify it any more than just read whatever catches your fancy. I'm always reading in three genres at the same time. I can't just read one book. But no, I mean, I work with authors who just don't have a reading habit, or maybe they read one book that was really influential and changed their life, and they want to do something like that. And I have to explain, well, that's one of many books that have done the same thing. How are you further differentiating? But
Mhm.
then there's also just, what do you like to read? What The way you communicate orally isn't going to be exactly how you write. So you need to understand, what do you enjoy reading? What, styles, tones, voices
Yeah.
are attractive to you. That's important, especially for ghostwriters. We want to know how our authors want to come across.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. That finding your voice thing is huge. Okay, thank you very much, Ray.
yeah,
It was an absolute pleasure to have you kicking off season 5 for us. We'll make sure to put all of your contact information down in the show notes so you can reach out to Ray if ghostwriting is something you do want to explore, if you are valuing getting your message out over learning how to do it yourself, which is incredibly valid, and I encourage you to do that. We'll make sure you can get in touch with Ray. Thank you very much. Thanks for tuning in to I Wrote That. Don't forget to download your free copy of Author Your Way to kickstart your journey as an authorpreneur. You'll find the link in today's show notes. And if you enjoyed today's episode, we'd love for you to leave us a review. It helps more listeners like you discover the show. Until next time, happy writing.